Entertainment Soldier here, and I am back to talk about Monarch Legacy of Monsters Season 1, Episode 3, and my thoughts on this episode. Sorry for the lateness of the review. I did not know this episode was coming out today. I thought it would be out every Friday, but they released this episode early for some reason, so I don't know. But let's talk about the episode. I thought the episode was great. I think it's the best episode so far. I love the surprised cameos that are in this episode. One big one being very interesting. Yeah, the episode storyline, great. The writing in this is fantastic. Nothing feels wasted. Everything feels like it should be in this episode. I love the backstory we got on Monarch, on how it was supposed to be more of a science-based group, not a military group, but in this episode they explain how that happened. I also love the chemistry between the characters. You know, Bill, Kate, her brother, May, Shaw. Yeah, I thought it was great. And again, it is so fucking refreshing to watch a fucking show that takes the story seriously. It's not trying to fucking throw politics at you. All it's trying to do is entertain you. And the biggest credit I will give this show is the characters aren't just there. The human characters I'm talking about. Because, again, in the films, they have been the biggest problem in the films. In this show, they're there for a reason. They're there to actually move the story forward. Not just be bystanders looking at what happens. They're there, they're involved. And I just think that is great. I really do commend the show on that. But we do have to talk about some problems. The CGI is, well, I'm not going to say shit, but for some scenes, it's very, very, very obvious that it's CGI. And there is a bit of a problem with the writing. Now, the writing's great, but as I've said in the other episodes, there's a bit too much convenient stuff happening. Like a convenience of escaping a prison, and like finding a crash site pretty fucking quick. Yes, I kind of think you should have written that a lot better. I kind of think just making it that easy for the two scenes. Again, I'm not saying the show's terrible. It's definitely not. It's just, again, that just seems too easy. You kind of have to work a bit harder if you want to, make those scenes a bit more believable. That's what I'm asking for. A bit more believable. I know I'm asking for believability in a show that talks about fucking huge monsters, but you get what I mean, right? Like, don't make the story seem so easy to get to the next bit. That's all I'm asking. But what would I give this out of 10? Again, I think it's the best episode of the season so far. So I will give it an 8 out of 10. Again, it's a really good episode. It's a great show. I am again still shocked that this show is turning out to be so good. Again, I wasn't expecting much. So, 8 out of 10. If you have not started watching this series, please go watch it. It is a good watch. And I will say another plus. A big plus, actually. Kurt Russell's acting is great. And it really does look like he's enjoying himself in this episode. I know people are going to say, well, why does that make the show good? Again, when an actor's enjoying himself, you can see it on the screen. And he does look like he's enjoying himself. He really does. And it's kind of fun to watch. Because, some actors, when they get roles like this, when they get, shows like this, you kind of see them take a bit of a step back. They don't want to really try that hard. You kind of see them kind of phone it in sometimes. Like Captain Marvel. When you can obviously tell the actor or actress is phoning it in because they know this is going to be a shit show. So, again, I'm just enjoying Kurt Russell's acting. It is great. And the rest of the cast is great too. Again, everything in the show, it just makes me happy to watch it. And I'm so happy this show exists. Thank you, Apple. Just thank you for this show. Anyway, let's go to spoilers now. If you don't want to hear spoilers, leave in 3, 2, 1. So, the episode starts off where we last left off, where Shaw is trying to escape a prison and pretty much telling Kate and Kentaro and May, make the decision. Do you want to go find your dad or do you want to stay in this prison? So, they all agree. Shaw, tells them to run to the car. They run to the car, head towards the gate. The gate closes. The security are running straight after them, but unfortunately none of these security guards have guns or even batons. Again, that's what I'm talking about by it looked way too easy to escape that prison. I get it's not supposed to look like a prison, but there must be safety measures. It can't just be a door being shut and a few bollards coming up from the ground just to stop vehicles from getting out of one direction. Again, I do think that's a problem. Getting to the next scene easy, it just makes the show a little bit shit. I'm just saying. Anyway, so when they're trying to get to the gate, Shaw stops the car, reverses it, makes a joke about did you get insurance, and bashes through the gardens and goes out the back gate or the back fence, breaks through it and drives off. We then go back into the past to 1954, where we see a young Shaw and Mira and Bill. Basically, they are meeting up with a general because they need funding for Monarch. But Mira and Bill are not exactly thrilled about going to the US Army for funding because they don't want Monarch to turn into a military operation. They want it to stay science-based so they can study the creatures. But Shaw tells them, listen, we can keep doing what we've been doing, which is running around the world, doing whatever, looking for stuff, or we can go to the US government and get a shitload of funding so we can actually have teams to do it for us and we can focus on trying to find the big threat and study the big threat. So what Shaw's saying does make sense. Yes, again, they could do what they're doing, but they're going to need money. You can't just go around the world free. They are going to need teams of people. They're going to need somebody to fund them. And the best option in that time is the government. They don't have a billionaire or trillionaire to run to. The government is just the best place for them to go. And Shaw is a military person, so he can talk to them. At least that's how he explains it to them. It's like, he knows that they're not happy with it, but he also knows they need the money. So the general comes, and it turns out to be the same general from the first episode who sent Shaw to be the protection for Mira. It's General Puckett, I think. Anyway, he's there to meet them, and Shaw goes over, salutes him, tells them what's happening. They've got evidence to show him about a threat to the world, basically. And the general goes into the warehouse, and it turns out to be Godzilla's print, or his footprint, that's been encased in something. And they've showed the general that and just say, whatever made that is massive, and as Shaw explains it like this: it's a massive threat to world security, and we need to study it to see, is it a threat to the US and the world? And the general sees this and he's like, yeah, this looks like a big threat. But when Bill and Mira mention that they need plutonium to attract the beast so they can study it, the general kind of gets a bit, not angry, but more concerned. It's like, why would you need that much plutonium? That's what it is. Plutonium, because they need 150 grams or something of it. not grams, tons of it. And again, they need plutonium for their nuclear weapons, because at this same point in time, they are fighting a Cold War with the Russians. So they need all the bombs they have right now. So wasting that much plutonium is not really something that's going to be easy to get the US government to agree to. But then Shaw mentions threat to the world. If we don't deal with this creature now, what happens if he ends up in America and starts attacking us, basically? So that pretty much makes it all say, okay, we'll get you what you need, and we'll meet somewhere to plan to lure, somewhere so we can plan to lure the creature, basically. We then go back to 2015 on a ship where Shaw is kind of talking about, you know, Kate and Kento's dad, how he was like as a child. He then looks at all the material that they have from their dad's safe and says, you know, mentions how Bill used to write so many notes that he used to write his pencil down to a nub. And, you know, a little bit backstory about Bill. But he then mentions that where they're going to need to get rid of these tapes, because if they get seen with them, Monarch might be able to find them faster, and they don't want Monarch to get these tapes. But May mentions that she has downloaded them all onto her computer or onto a drive or the internet. So they have all of the tapes information on the internet for them to, you know, view at their leisure. But whilst Shaw's talking about this, Kate's kind of still freaked out about what's happening. She didn't really expect this to be happening to her, not to be going on a monster adventure. She starts kind of wondering, like, is her dad alive? What happens if they find him? You know, everything's kind of getting to her, so she kind of needs space at this time and just leaves the car to go for a walk. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention what also happened is Shaw starts talking about Monarch and how he kind of mentions how Shaw, Mera and Bill were trying to start wanting to warn the people about the creatures before G-Day happened, you know, Godzilla's attack. Because Kate kind of says, why didn't you warn the public about these creatures? And Shaw says, yes, we tried to warn them, but Monarch didn't really want to let that information out. And the fact that Monarch has kind of been changing into something different, something that him and the others didn't want it to turn into, which is, you know, kind of a military spy operation. So apparently that's what's been happening. Shaw's been pretty much being kept in prison to keep him silent and, you know, make sure he doesn't go telling people about the monsters. And in the background, Monarch's been kind of being a bit evil somehow. So Kate gets out of the car, goes off to kind of clear her head. The next scene is we're introduced to the head of Monarch, who has been brought to Japan by Ted, I think his name is, because he pretty much fucked up and let everybody escape with all of the secret information from Bill's bag. So she is pretty pissed off because apparently she has a daughter who is going to start college, and they were going to do some like family thing where she was going to take her to a dorm room or something, and now she's had to cancel that and let her ex-husband deal with that. So it's kind of a whole thing with her. But she pretty much says to Ted, you fucked up, get back on the plane and we're going to go back to Monarch. And she talks to the agent that Bill tricked to work with him, because it turns out this was a rogue mission, and it turns out Bill isn't working for a covert or secret organisation. No, he's actually working for Monarch. He just went rogue and didn't tell the people at the top about the secret information that was found, because he wants to do his own mission, and it turns out that he has a secret mission or at least something we might find out later in the series, because there's something in Bill's notes that is important to his work that he wants to find. But when the head of Monarch pretty much tells Bill she's had enough of his fuck-ups, get back on the plane, the French agent of Monarch finds out that Shaw is heading to Korea, and it would be best if Ted stayed with her because he's crazy, Shaw's crazy, and that might help her find Shaw faster. So the head of Monarch, she agrees, and now they're going to head off with a task force to hunt down Shaw and the group. So on the ship, Shaw tells everybody that they need to get rid of the tapes that they have on them, because if South Korean authorities find those tapes, they're going to inform the American government, and the American government's going to pretty much inform Monarch, and Monarch will be able to find them faster. So Shaw tells them, we got to dump these tapes quick, and because if we get found with them, we're fucked. So he wants to dump them off the ship, but Kento is he's against it, because those are his father's tapes, and again, he doesn't want to give up something that his father owned, because again, it's his father's work and stuff. But Shaw kind of says, listen, we have the tapes, I know you miss your dad, I miss him too, but if you want to find him, if you want to find out if he's alive or dead, we kind of need to get to Korea, or at least get through Korean security. And the best way to do that is to get rid of the tape. So Kento agrees reluctantly and throws the tapes over the side. And then we get a really bad CGI scene with the tapes falling into the sea. Again, I'm just saying the tapes are obviously CGI. I don't know why you're not just going to throw... Well, I know why you're not throwing real tapes into the sea because of all pollution and stuff. I get it. I'm just saying CGI could be a little bit better. So they make it to Korea. When they're going through customs, Shaw tries to mention they need to be in Q2, not Q1, but unfortunately Q1 becomes available, and it looks like the South Korean security are not really taking any bullshit with them. Force them to go to line 1, and when they get there, Shaw's kind of trying to bullshit his way out of, telling the security guard, we don't have any passports. But turns out they don't really give a turns out they do give a shit. They pretty much get the security guards to grab Shaw and the group and throw them in prison, basically. Taking them to a prison van where they are getting kind of hit by the security guards. And then before they get into the van, while Shaw is getting a bit of a smackdown from the other security guard, one of the security guard turns on the other, smacks him, throws him in the van, and it turns out this is the security guard they were going to meet up with to get them through security, and it turns out to be an old friend of Shaw. They get into his car and drive off to head to a plane, an old plane they're going to take all the way to Alaska to find Kate and Kento's dad. Oh, I also forgot the scene about May telling Kento, you ruined my life. Because of you getting me involved in all this shit, my house has been taken away from me, my life has been destroyed, and thank you for that. I know it was kind of an important scene, but not really much happened in it, sorry. Anyway, they get on the plane, head off. Shaw talks more about their dad, and he doesn't try to make excuses for their dad. He says their dad, if he wants something, he'll go for it. And I don't think he meant to lie to you both, but Kate's not really having it. He's like, he lied to us, he should have told us the truth, and she's just not sure if she wants to see her dad again or just to know that he's dead. She's just on the fence right now because, what does she say to the man who lied to her for most of her life? What does she say to the man who cheated on her mother? And Kento's kind of like, could you lay off their dad. I get you're angry, but he wants to find their dad alive, not dead, and he's not sure if Kate wants to find him alive. That's basically it. Oh yeah. Shaw's friend's named Duho. He's the pilot flying the plane, and he's the guy who got them through security. Anyway, we go back into the past where Shaw, Bill, and Mira are heading to the beach where they're expecting to see the uranium. But unfortunately, what it turns out to be is not just uranium, it turns out to be a nuclear bomb. And Mira and Bill are not happy with this because they understand that that means this is not going to be something to just lure the creature, it's going to be something to try to kill the creature. So Shaw tries to calm them down and says he'll go talk to the general and try to find out what's going on. When Shaw talks to the general is pretty much like, I got you your plutonium. I had to do a lot of shit to do that. And the only way I could get them to give it to you is if I promised the generals above me, because he's only a 1-star general, is that we killed the creature before it can do any sort of damage to the US and the world, as you did say, Shaw. So he pretty much tells Shaw, listen, you're the one who said this was a massive threat. I'm here to make sure that threat doesn't become a massive threat to the United States, which you can understand because, you know, G-Day did happen. So Shaw kind of understands, like, he knows he can't really win this fight. He knows he has to accept the mission is going to have to kill whatever comes up. So he just tells them, listen, he goes back, talks to Mira and Bill. This is the only way you're going to be able to see the creature. This is the only way we're going to get funding for Monarch. If we don't do this now, they're just going to cut us out anyway and continue with this operation. So if you want to be a part of the operation, you're just going to have to accept it. So Bill and Mira reluctantly agree, and then it's the waiting game. They wait there for a couple of hours. It looks like nothing's going to happen. General looks like he's going to be, well, apologising to a lot of generals for wasting plutonium, or at least wasting money on an operation that didn't matter. But then they start hearing stuff on Sonar, and then we get the big reveal of the episode. Godzilla turns up. Yes, it took 3 episodes, but we got Godzilla, and he was what was attracted to the plutonium bomb. And so the plan is, apparently, wait for Godzilla to get close enough and then detonate the nuclear bomb. So whilst they are looking at Godzilla walk to the bomb, Mira talks to Shaw, tries to get him to stop the attack, to get them not to kill Godzilla. I mean, it is pretty funny that Godzilla survives this, because we all know what's going to happen in the future. But anyway, Mira tries to convince Shaw. Shaw's like, listen, there's nothing we can do. This is going to happen. You're just going to have to let it happen. So Mira pretty much takes things into her own hand, runs to the satellite dish that is going to send a signal to the nuclear bomb, but Shaw sees what she's about to do and runs over to her and grabs her, stops her from trying to sabotage the mission, and then the army blows up the nuclear bomb, making it look like they evaporate and totally destroy Godzilla. General says successful operation. Mira is completely devastated by this and the fact that the military look like they've just taken over this operation. They go back to camp where Mira and Bill are kind of upset about what's happened. Mira more than Bill. Bill's, I think, more of a pragmatist. He understands that he wishes he didn't have to do this, but they do need the government's help. Shaw comes into the room, tells them he's had a chat with the general. He said, I pretty much shot for the stars. I asked for all this stuff. It looks like the general has said no, but it turns out the general agreed to everything and has pretty much given them a blank check so that they can start Monarch and make it what they want, basically. But there has to be a military side of it as well, as Shaw mentions. But Mira and Bill kind of tried to persuade Shaw into, listen, we had to have one monster be killed to get the funding, but do we have to tell the general about every creature? Is there some sort of loophole into not telling the general about every creature so they don't have to kill it? So Shaw pretty much says, listen, I will tell the general everything you tell me, you just don't tell me everything you know. So basically Shaw's giving them an out so that they can all work together and everybody's happy, basically. So all three agree, and this is the start of Monarch. I do have a problem with this. I get how the organisation started now, and I think it's great. But I hope we do get some sort of explanation to why Monarch in the 70s is looked at as a joke when there's camera footage and an atom bomb test to destroy a creature that's been filmed. Like, how did Monarch get from being this organisation that has a blank check to, in the 70s, barely having money to organise an operation? I hope we get that information through the series. Anyway, we go back to 2015 on the plane. Doho is piloting the plane, but then they get to Alaska, where Shaw takes over as the pilot, gets Kate to drink some water, and then puts the water on the dashboard, and it becomes a cheap way of signalling how the plane is in the air. I don't know what the fuck they called it. And they get to the place where their dad went missing, apparently, and drop down, a serious big drop. Shaw flies straight down to the bottom, then pulls up at the near end, and then lands safely on a mountaintop. Just saying a bit too easy for me, that scene. So they land the plane, get out of the plane, head off into one direction, and then what do they find? The crash site of Kate and Kato's dad. And they now fear the worst, because Kate doesn't want to see her dad's dead body, so it looks like she does want her dad to survive. But it looks like there was a survivor of the crash, because somebody put up a tent. It looks like they have been studying things whilst they were in the tent. You know, Shaw, Kate, May, and Kento. The pilot, Doho, goes out, looks at the wreckage of the plane, and it looks like the plane landed safely. It didn't crash. And when he inspects the plane even more, it looks like it was a creature attack that destroyed the plane. So Doho pretty much runs for it, tells them to get out of the tent and head back to the plane. When he gets to the plane, we then get the second monster in this episode, which is like this ice dog. It attacks the plane and apparently has this ability to freeze things. So it pretty much ices the plane and Doho in the plane, destroys the plane and kills Doho. So he only lasts an episode. Sad to see him go. I think he was an interesting character. I liked him when he was joking with Kate about, you know, if you find your dad, at least you'll be able to tell him to go fuck himself, basically. I liked him. But yeah, Doho dies. And then the episode ends with all five staring at the creature. And that's how the episode ends. I think it's a great episode. I love the backstory we're getting about Monarch. And I love how they're turning Monarch into this kind of dark organisation. Because in the movies, it was controlled by that Asian guy. And it looks like some darker forces have now taken over. Monarch. So I'm liking that storyline. Again, I'm loving all the characters. I love old Shaw and I love young Shaw. Kate's a great character. May, you know, I wish she'd get a bit more screen time, but I am liking her character. Kento, again, I kind of like the fact he's very close to his dad. And he kind of doesn't want to just give up on his father. He wants to find him. And Mira and Bill. I love everybody in this show so far. And I'm loving these episodes. And I can't wait for next week's episode. 8 out of 10. Watch this show if you haven't watched it. And, I just can't wait. And that's the end of my review. If you like this video, give it a like. If you dislike this video, give it a dislike. And if you like my content, do think about subscribing. And if you have a comment, leave it below and I'll get back to it later. Entertainment World Soldier. Bye.